You've been searching for the best way to generate passive income in your life and heard that real estate is a great way to do it. But you're tired of all the so-called gurus who are all talk and no substance. Get ready to celebrate because Kevin Bupp has spent 14 years successfully making it happen. This is the Real Estate Investing for Cash Flow podcast. Now, here's Kevin Bupp.
Hey guys, Kevin Bupp here with episode number 176 of the Real Estate Investing for Cash Flow podcast. Our mission is to help you build and maintain massive amounts of cash flow through income-producing real estate investments. Now, before I introduce our guest for today's show, I want to mention a very important item regarding this particular show. Now, I actually mentioned this a few episodes ago, and that was that throughout the next few months, I would be releasing a number of interviews that kind of have been lost in the archives or just simply were never released. Most of these interviews were simply awesome, and they just accidentally fell through the cracks, and they never made it on the show schedule to be released. Well, today's show was one of them, and it's absolutely awesome, and it would pain me for you guys not to hear it and take away a ton of value, just like I did when we actually did the interview. Now, I will tell you that the sound quality of today's show has some very, very minor challenges, but really they're teeny tiny, and they shouldn't keep you from walking away with a ton of value from the interview. And so with that being said, our guest for this week's show is a real estate expert, mobile home and RV park investor, and my good friend, Tim Zomermaand. Now, I conducted this interview more than a year and a half ago, and I've had the opportunity to actually meet Tim in person since recording this 2 different times at actual real estate events. And I'll be the first one to tell you that he's one of the most stand-up guys that you'll ever meet. And so if you ever happen to have the opportunity to meet or speak with Tim, then definitely do it. So in the show with Tim, you're going to learn the following. You're going to learn how Tim got started as a real estate investor by purchasing a $9,000 single-family home and flipping it for a pretty healthy profit. You'll learn how he initially got started in the RV park business by leveraging a few of his single-family rental properties as collateral to purchase his very first 94-space RV park. You'll learn how Tim doubled the value of his first RV park from the $500,000 that he paid for it to more than $1 million in less than 1.5 years, and then proceeded to parlay that equity into 2 additional mobile home park investments, one of those being a very large 277 space community. You learn how he staffs his RV parks to handle the 24/7 round-the-clock operation. You're also going to learn why he doesn't like RV parks with public restrooms. You'll learn how he's been able to successfully collect a large majority of the bad debt when taking over a new community. Now, I would tell you that we typically write this bad debt off upon purchasing a new community, but Tim has found a way to capitalize on it. You'll learn how learning to better delegate responsibilities within his own business allowed Tim to accelerate both the growth and overall cash flow of his investments, and much, much more. So I will tell you that I'm very excited to get onto the show with Tim, but before we do, I have a few important updates I'd like to run through with you guys very quickly. First and foremost, as you guys are aware, we also specialize in not necessarily RV parks, but mobile home parks, and we're looking for additional acquisition opportunities. And so if you run across something that is at least 60 spaces in size, please think of us. Whether you're looking just to flip it, we'd love to pay you a big finder's fee, or maybe you're looking for a partner to help you take it down, capital partner, operational partner, or maybe a little bit of both. We're very open to any possibility, 60 plus spaces in size. If you have something you'd like to talk about, you can reach out to me directly, kevin@kevinbupp.com. We can handle deals upwards of $25 to $30 million, individual deals or even portfolio deals. So if you have something, if you hear of something through the grapevine, or if you run into an opportunity while you're out there in your search for whether it be mobile home parks or other types of real estate investments, please think of us. I'd love to chat with you about it. Next up, got some really good news. Me and my executive team are working diligently on rolling out fund number 2, mobile home park fund number 2 to be more specific, and expect to have it rolled out here in the very near future. So if you missed out on the very first fund and have an interest in partnering with us in our second mobile home park fund, please be sure to go to our website, sunrisecapitalinvestors.com, create a free account inside our investment portal, and this will basically give you the first to know when fund number 2 rolls out. And based on the demand for the first fund that we just closed out. We're expecting to fulfill our subscriptions very quickly. In addition, there's a link when you're actually making that account or setting up that account. There's a link there where you can schedule a time to jump on the phone with our team to answer any questions you might have about our group or this future investment opportunity. I'll tell you that we already have 3 parks that are in contract and another 4 in the pipeline, working towards getting them into contract, and a lot more that we're currently in negotiations on. If you have an interest, again, go to sunrisecapitalinvestors.com and create that free account. Lastly, guys, if you happen to be in the Tampa Bay area, we'd love to meet up with you. We'd love to have the opportunity to speak shop, talk shop, and just share this passion that we have for real estate investing together, right? And so I love meeting others that have that same passion. So if you'd like to grab a coffee, a beer, lunch, whatever you have time for, just reach out to me ahead of time. If you know you're coming into town, shoot me an email, kevin@kevinbupp.com. Let me know what your travel plans are, and let's see if we can coordinate our schedules. Now, without further ado, let's get on to the interview with Tim. So here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, today on the show, we're thrilled to be joined by a real estate expert and president of Green Tree Management, Tim Zomermaand. Tim has been an active real estate investor for more than 25 years and specializes in the affordable housing market, primarily mobile home parks. In addition to his own real estate endeavors, he runs Green Tree Management, a property management company that manages just under 500 units in the greater Wichita, Kansas area. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Tim Zomermaand to the show. Tim, how are you doing today?
Doing good, Kevin. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to join us here and share a little bit about your background and your story and how you got into this crazy business of real estate investing. So if you would, just to kind of fill in the blanks for my little brief introduction of you there, because you've been doing it for 25 years. So it's a lot more expansive than what I just gave our listeners. And so if you could take a few minutes, our listeners, a little bit more about yourself and kind of how you got into this business.
Well, Kevin, I started in a really interesting way. I was straight out of college, working for a semiconductor company in California and traveling full-time, working, 80-plus hours a week, and traveling all over the world. My mom, because, I was a mama's boy back then, handled all my books, and she happened to be a realtor. She called me up one time, and she said, hey, I got this little house. You should buy it. You've got money in your account. You should buy it. I'll go ahead and hire out the contractors to fix it, and then we'll sell it. I think you can make some good money. So I bought it for $9,000, and she had it fixed for, I think, $3,000, and we sold it, we ended up with $3,000 profits of 9 and 12, 15, $18,000. And it took a couple of months. But that's when I kind of realized, hey, this real estate thing is really neat. You just don't have to be a realtor. You can actually actively buy and sell real estate and make some money. I was working full-time in semiconductors and traveling. So I didn't do anything else for a while until I think it was 96. We moved back to the U.S. and started buying fixer-uppers to live in. And also, we bought our first condo in Dallas. I learned condos are not necessarily for me, but Dallas is a great market. It had been then, and it still is. So we bought and sold some houses wherever we lived, and it seemed like every 2 years we were buying a new house to live in because I was getting bored after work and wanted another project. We eventually ended up in New Mexico. In New Mexico, I was working down there and working 410s. And so we started buying and selling houses, flipping houses, or buy, fix, and sell, I guess is what they call it. Mm-hmm. And had fun doing that. And then we had a baby girl. And you know how it is when you have kids. Everything changes. Mm-hmm. After I had the little girl, we decided we really wanted to be self-employed. So I quit my great paying job and moved the family to Wichita, Kansas, where we figured we were going to start our real estate business, buying rentals. And there we started buying one house a month, fixing it up, putting a renter in it. Oh, it's great, because what we would do, we had some cash, so we'd pay it for cash, fix it up with cash, put a renter in it, go to the local bank and say, hey, we need a cash-out refi loan. They put a loan on it. We get all our money out. We go do it again. We did 13 of them in 13 months. And that's when I realized that single-family homes, although they're awesome and they're easy to buy and easy to finance, don't cash flow that well.
Mm-hmm.
And we got involved with Rich Dad, Poor Dad and did one of their big training things. And one of the classes I took was on mobile home parks.
Mm-hmm.
When we got back from that class, I was reading in the paper, and in the business opportunity section was an ad that says, RV park for sale, $550,000. Call so-and-so. So I called him up. I said, hey, I'd love to talk to you about your RV park that's for sale. He said, great. So I came down and visited with him. It was a gentleman. His family had built the RV park in 1953. His dad lived in the park, in the big house there, and it had 93 units. Okay? He wanted $550,000. At that point, I had $55,000 cash left in my IRA, and a burning desire to own an RV park. We had a bunch of equity in our single-family homes, and so I found a bank, which took about 30 phone calls. I called every bank in town and said, hey, can I talk to the commercial lending department, and asked them if they're a portfolio lender. If they weren't, I hung up. If they were, I asked, do you lend on RV parks and mobile home parks? There was 3 of them that said yes, they would, and I made appointments and sat down with them. Out of those 3, one of them actually would let me use the collateral of my single-family homes as the downstroke, so I got 100% financing on the RV park by using my single-family homes as collateral. Okay? It was really neat, except for the last week prior to closing, I got a call from the bank saying, hey, this is all fine and dandy and all, but you don't have a ton of experience in RV parks, because I have 0, right? And they said, we need another $50,000, which was exactly what I had in my IRA. So I cashed out my IRA, the last $50,000 of it, and put everything we had for cash-wise into that little RV park. The neat thing of it is, when we bought it, the lot rents, the monthly lot rents, because it's an urban park, and it was primarily people that were there year-round. I mean, one RV had been there 12 years, right?
Wow.
Mostly contractors and come to find out, 3 drug dealers, a bunch of people that did drugs, and at least 10 drunks. And we're talking full-time drunks, right? Lot rent was $185 a month, plus electricity, and everybody else in town for the other 2 RV parks in town were much, much higher. So we walked in, fired the manager, fired the maintenance, because we had no money. We had $3,000 to our name and an RV park, and we're trying to figure out how to make ends meet, right? So we fired everybody, raised rent $20 a month, and kicked out the drug dealers, kicked out most of the drunks, and slowly started increasing occupancy. It was a little wild. I only had a gun pulled on me once. Only got almost run over once.
Oh, boy.
But this is part of turning around a community that is undesirable.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
The neat thing of it is, the old boy who built the park, part of the stipulation, because I got it for $500 instead of $550, was he got to live rent-free in the house there for the rest of his days. And so it was really neat, because I got to visit with this old guy who had built a mobile home empire in the town. He'd built an empire. He'd built a bunch of different parks. he had thousands of units that he divvied up amongst his kids, right? And he had a wealth of knowledge, and he was nice enough to stay out of my business. But yet when I would come and ask him about things, he never failed to have time for me and guide me. It was really neat. It was a great experience. We eventually got sick and tired of managing it and doing all the maintenance and doing everything. And we hired a manager, which was the best day my wife can remember for a long time, right? She no longer had to manage the RV park. We got a manager, and it started cash flowing very well, because we ended up raising rents almost $50 a month within the first year and a half.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, the park at that point was being valued at just about $1 million. So within a year and a half, it went from a $500,000 park to $1 million park based on a 10 cap, which is really neat. Right?
Yeah,
I'm like, holy bucket.
$50 a month. I mean, assuming that you had all 93 lots occupied, I'm sure there was a few vacant pads, but just assuming that you had 93 occupied, that's a gross income increase of over $55,000. Just by raising rents. I mean, that's the power of multifamily in general, especially when you can buy something that is somewhat underperforming, that it's got below market rents, and you can just go in and raise rents, because it doesn't cost you anything to raise rents, right? Other than a piece of paper. I mean, you had to do some improvements and aesthetically probably improve the park, but yeah, no, it's a beautiful thing.
It is. It really opened my eyes. It validated the stuff that we had learned by all the reading of the books I have done, plus, the little classes that we had taken, right? And it was powerful, right? That's when we were like, holy buckets. This real estate thing is not only fun and exciting, it's powerful. Mm-hmm. We can change our life here and really build something long-lasting, right? Mm-hmm. And it had massive cash flow at that point, because we had very little debt on it. We actually, right at that point when we brought in the manager, we were effectively retired. We had enough cash flow coming in between that and our houses, because at that point we had 15 houses, I think, that we didn't have to work. All of our monthly nut was covered. Now, we weren't saving any, but our monthly nut was covered. Mm-hmm. And we did that within 3 years of becoming self-employed. It was amazing.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's exciting.
Really cool.
Absolutely, that's the American dream right there. I mean, seriously, and you guys did it by just hard work and dedication. I mean, you didn't start with a lot of money, and you were smart about your investment strategy, and it pays off. I mean, you took baby steps at first with the single-family homes, but then really knocked it out of the park with the mobile home park. And it's just, here's the big thing that I try to stress quite often, is that the amount of effort that it takes you to buy one single-family home, it's very much the similar effort to buy that one mobile home park. Now, the first time around, commercial financing is a little bit tougher. You got to call a lot of banks to, it's not as easy. It's not as black and white, right? It's all bank specific. You really just got to sit down with the credit, hopefully your loan officer, or get in front of a credit officer and actually have discussions about the opportunity and try to sell them on it, right? You have to get them interested. It's not just black and white like it is with residential financing. But if it only takes one deal like that, right? I mean, so you did 15 single family homes. And I can guarantee that it took way less time to buy that one park than it did all 15 of those single-family homes. And you make way more money on that mobile home park and cash flow than you do on those 15 single-family homes. Am I correct?
We made more cash flow and more equity.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was amazing. And of course, then I screw it up. I screwed it up by doing a cash-out refi and taking that money and buying together with some partners 2 more mobile home parks, right? And now that isn't too bad, because we bought one. What I shouldn't say I screwed it up. What it is, I changed my cash flow, because we had much more debt. It didn't cash flow as much, so I was no longer retired, right? I had to work again. But what we did, we turned that one into 2 more mobile home parks with partners. One of them was a 277 unit park.
Wow.
it was off market. It was losing money. We knew the people who owned it, and we had been talking with them, or I'd been talking with them for years. And they did. One time I called them and they're like, Tim, why don't you buy it? We want $1.7 million. 1.75 is what it was. 175. I said, great. I can get it financed, but I don't have the full 25% down. Would you carry back 12.5% on a 3-year balloon? Which they did. The bank went for it, so we came up with 12.5%. And that one was, the rents were pretty close to market, but the reason it was losing money is water leaks and water waste. And in a park that big, that's a big deal. Mm-hmm. And also the management and maintenance expenses were very, very high. They had a manager that was making $60,000 a year, and the maintenance was making $40,000.
Wow.
I put in a part-time manager because at a mobile home park, even a big one, it doesn't take but a couple hours a day to manage it.
These were mostly lot rentals then, right? I mean,
it was all lot rentals.
Yeah, because it really doesn't take much time to manage a strictly lot rental park. But if you had 50 park-owned homes in there, it would be a different story with management.
Isn't that the truth? So we put in a manager who's making $15,000.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And the maintenance, we rolled in with our maintenance crews that were doing our single-family homes and the remodels that we were doing. So we cut the maintenance dramatically also. We ended up improving lot rents, improving the infrastructure of the park, fixing some of the electrical. We did a bunch of stuff to it, right? We stuck a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into it. And we were starting to grow the park when we had some issues with partners. And so we decided the best thing to do was sell that community. We ended up selling it after 18 months for $2.45. Okay. Again, the value and power of multifamily, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is a powerful deal, right? I mean,
another thing you didn't mention there. I mean, I know initially when you bought it wasn't cash flowing, but you got to turn it around in probably, I'm assuming, 3 or 4 months before you guys started actually being in the positive with it. Yeah.
Oh, this is even better. So it had 70,000 of bad debt, meaning people who lived there owed the park $70,000.
Mm-hmm.
When I purchased the park, I paid them extra for that debt.
You paid that? You paid them extra for that debt?
I did.
Wow.
I gave them.
I've never heard of that.
These are good people. These are good people, and I said, "Hey, I want that debt."
Okay.
Right. So I paid them a little bit extra for that debt. I purchased that debt from them, and the day we closed, we became cash flow neutral because of adjusting our expenses, okay? I also went to everybody who owed money, and I said, you got 3 months to get it current or get out. And out of that $60,000, we were able to collect right at about $40,000.
Get out of here! That's
Dude,
insane.
I'm serious.
That's incredible collection. So you must have walked around like a billy club and a pistol, threatening people. That's crazy.
I'm a nice guy, but I'm 6'5", big old boy.
Gotcha.
And I'm just a gentle giant until I'm not. Right. I'm the nicest guy you'll ever meet until I'm not nice. And then I'm mean.
That's interesting. Yeah, it's because we bought parks with bad debt. We buy many with bad debt. In fact, we're looking at one now that's got about 50,000 of bad debt, and it's 100. Mm-hmm. It's only 130 spaces. And typically what we would do in a situation like that is number one, we wouldn't buy it, but number two is we would just go in and kind of Christmas comes early for you guys. This is your one shot. This is being forgiven, and moving forward, there's no exceptions, no partial pays. no ifs, ands, or buts.
Yep.
Rent's due in the 1st, late on the 6th. We start eviction after that. After the 6th, you're out soon. Shortly thereafter, and that's it.
Right.
But I like that idea because I've always kind of written it off as it's not really worthy debt. Like if it's maybe it's just because my experience is that in affordable housing niche, it's hand to mouth, right? I mean, most of the people that live in parks, they work service type industry jobs, or they very blue collar. They make $8, $9, $10, $12, $15 an hour. And if they get 1 month behind, it's very hard for them to ever catch up again because they never make more money than what they're currently making today. And if they mismanage it 1 month, it's very difficult for them to catch back up. And but that's just my personal experience. And maybe I should really take a different approach with it next time and try to actually collect on some of that bad debt. I think I will. So
Kevin, what I can tell you is, yes, a lot of people do live, check to check. But what I can tell you, if a person owns their home free and clear, and they like the community and what you're going to do with the community, because, we didn't just come in swinging the axe and hitting them over the head with a hammer, right? I came in, I said, hey, we're going to do this, 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 and this. And by the way, you're going to pay us or you're going to get out, right? And we did everything we said we were going to do. From the day one, we were in there making positive changes in the community, and people saw that. Plus, also, I had a reputation in the town already from our first community that, Wichita is a small enough town. It's only, 350, 400,000 people, that people had heard of me. They knew I would do what I say I'm going to do, and they also knew I had no patience, right, for people to do the wrong thing. And so what happened is they called family and friends, and they said, hey, we got to take care of this or else we're going to lose our home. And I told them, I said, I was going to take your home. Now, can I do that? You know how it goes. Yes and no. The reality of it is we pushed hard. We needed to do it, and it worked really well. It's something I have done in the second part that we bought after that,
Mm-hmm.
And it works.
Let me ask you this: what'd you do with the percentage of people that couldn't make up? Let's say they had money to start paying, current again. They could maintain a monthly payment on time, but they couldn't get the money to make up any of the back debt that they owed. What did you do?
So, I kind of did on a case by case basis.
Okay.
Because the ones who couldn't come up, because some of them, I said, hey, you're behind this much money. If you can come up with half, we'll go for it, right? And that was really exciting to them. Some of them, we put it on payments. It took me to finish the collections. It took almost 6 months, right? But I got the lion's share in 3 months. And some of the people, I just evicted. I just said, you know what? You can't come up with a dime more. You've done all of this in the past. I believe you aren't going to be able to keep up with it in the future. Why don't you just leave?
Yeah.
And we can do it the easy way or the hard way. I can run it to the courts, and it'll affect your credit and your ability to move into another place, or you can get out.
Yep.
And a couple of them, we even bought their homes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not a total bad guy.
No, it's it's a lot easier if you can just cash for keys and just make it an amicable split. Let them move on with their life. Let you move on with yours. If they want to take the tough road, that's their decision. I never take that path unless I'm forced to take that path. And so, and very rarely do we have to. Do we have to go the whole way through to where the sheriff shows up at the door? And typically either they go when we offer them some money, or they wait until they get the final 24-hour notice, before the sheriff is coming, and then they go on their own. But either way, right. They're gone, and a lot of times we don't even have to get to the point to where the sheriff is knocking on the door and removing them physically. So,
it's one of those things that every area is a little different.
Yeah.
But if they're good people, you know how it is, man. If they're good people, you want to work with them.
Absolutely.
If they're not good people and they want to make it exciting, it's going to get exciting. And I don't have any patience for people like that. I've learned over time that even though it's entertaining to be confrontational, it's not always the best business decision. So we have gotten to the point where everything we do is via letters, or either through the mail or posted on the doors. That way it is less confrontational. My managers, actually I have managers now that are all women, and they don't do confrontation at all. Mm-hmm. And so for me not being there and being, 500 miles away now, it's working out really, really well. I think it might be working out better because we're non-confrontational and we do everything via letters. We try and work things out with people, but also we're not going to get pushed around, and they're either going to pay us our money or they are going to end up moving out. And that's all there is to it. We have bills to pay. They need to pay theirs.
It's funny. It sounds like I'm talking to a mirror right now because I feel the same way. It's just I've got bills. I don't need to hear your stories. I've got my own stories. I got my own excuses, right? I've got my own things that happen in my life, and I got to still pay my bills. And so I feel bad for you. I'm sorry this has happened. Whatever it is that's happened in your life that is prohibiting you from paying us your monthly rent, but you've got to figure it out. Just like I've got to figure out how to pay my bills. And so I think that we can all be trained as human beings, right? I mean, you and I are trained for whatever our morning routines are. Like I've got a morning routine, you've got a morning routine. We're trained. We build habits, and I feel like that those habits that can be broken, and you can change people's bad habits. And so when you go into one of these parks and you're in the turnaround process, you've got people in there that are just used to paying late or not paying at all. You can train them, but some you can't. Some you're just going to end up losing, right? They're so used to not doing things right that you're not going to be able to convert them back. And but I think as long as you get in there and you've got number one, you prove that you're going to do what you say you're going to do, right? And that means if you don't pay, if you don't agree to my terms and you don't follow the rules here, then you're going to go. And I think some people will kind of push you around. And I think if you don't got the heart to actually follow through with what you say, then you shouldn't be in this business, because those are the people that end up making, they end up being terrible landlords or property owners, because you've got to stick with what you say and you've got to make an example sometimes. And so, your rent's due in the first, lay on the 6th. And here's what's going to happen after that. Like they're used to getting, if you're going to serve the pay or quit on the 6th, and then whatever your state you're in, whatever process happens after that point in time, if they know what that process looks like and they're trained, okay, well, gosh, tomorrow's the 6th, darn it, we're going to get the pay or quit. And then after that, we have this many days. They can do simple math. And I think when you train people to have these expectations of what's about to happen next, and they know what the end result's going to be, then you get most of them to pay. They just either, because here's the thing with mobile home parks, if they leave where they're living now, and this is assuming they actually own the home, right? If they actually own the home and they're paying just lot rent, where the heck are they going to move that is less expensive than what they're currently paying, right? Because they don't have the money to move their home. So where else are they going to go that's less than what they're currently paying now? The answer is there is nowhere.
Right. And in that market, a lot of the parks will pay to move your home for you. Mm-hmm. So they can get their homes moved for free. And that is a bit of an issue there. But what we found is if you say, like you said, do what you say. So we told people we were going to be very fair and we were going to be very hard and fast on payment, but also we were going to improve the park. We were going to lower the crime. That park had 750 trees. We were going to trim trees and protect their homes because they were having, because in Kansas, we get windstorms, right? And tornadoes and all this other good stuff. And so trimming trees is a big deal. We were going to trim trees. We were going to make sure the pool was open on time and managed properly. And basically we said we were going to make this the desirable community it had always been throughout the history of it. And we were going to bring it back to its roots, right? And in exchange, they were going to, follow the rules and pay on time. And it worked out really good. A lot of great people in affordable housing, and I feel that they get squeezed and taken advantage of so often. I don't do that, right? I'm not going to take advantage of people. I am going to make good money, and I'm going to do, this is a business. It is not a nonprofit. It's not a mission. It is a business. Well, I do have a mission, right?
I agree with you. Everything you're saying. I just giggle because it sounds very similar to the words that come out of my mouth.
Because I want to treat people good. I want them to have a wonderful place to live. I want them to feel safe and secure in the communities that we own. And it's going to happen no matter what it takes, right? And in exchange, we're going to ask for rent. We do raise rents every year. Every May, rents go up. I usually use our rents are pretty low. We're in the 200s. And in the mobile home parks, and I usually raise them $5 a year, maybe $10 a year. I don't go more than that because that's enough that people can pay it without having to hurt their lifestyle. If you do 25 or 50, they start getting angry. It seems like, right? But you can make a lot more money. But again, I want them to have.
You also have to stay within whatever the market is as well, right? I mean, if you're the guy, if the market's 250 and you push yours to 300, well, at that point in time, it makes economical sense for them to actually go to another park because they're going to actually, regain that savings in just a number of couple years, So, I mean, as long as you stay within the market itself, I think, and you've got the nicer park in town, then you can always be at the top of the market and you can always push it to the top, but you can't be, leaps and bounds ahead of everyone else.
Right.
So I want to switch gears a little bit, and I know that you had mentioned your first purchase was an RV park, but it really, I guess it doesn't, after you telling us about it a little bit, it doesn't sound like, when I think of an RV park, I think of nightly stays, weekly stays, pull behind campers, things of that nature. Then that wasn't really the case there, right? I mean, you had mostly permanent residents.
Well, when we bought it, that's what it was. And it was running about 50-60% occupied. Okay? What we did through advertising and through straightening out the park and word of mouth and all of that, we were able to increase the overnight and the weekly stay. We still have a vast majority of long-term. And long-term in that park, in the RV industry, is 3 months, right? 3 months I consider long-term in that. And we are primarily that, but we do have a lot of overnight traffic and a lot of weekly traffic. And it's a little bit different tenant or resident, guest, however you want to call it, versus the person who's there longer term, right? Because they more want the amenities, whereas the people that they're longer, they're there for work or it's just that it's cheap. And they want cheap, So what we found is by adding amenities, cleaning up the park, we acquired a lot more of that overnight, very transient guest, and their profit margins are fat, really, really good profit margins compared to the monthly stay. And so we continue to get more and more of that, right? It's not 50% of the business, but it started at almost 0%, and now we're up to probably 25% of the business.
Tell me about the differences in the business model itself, though. So that's it's vastly different than a what we would consider a mobile home park, to where you've got yearly residents. In fact, most of them, if they own their own homes, they've been there. They end up staying for quite a long time. You'll see residents that have lived there for 15, 20, 25, 30 plus years. And the home, maybe it's changed hands a few times, but maybe it's been within the family or they sell it themselves. But, the home doesn't leave, right? So talk to me about the difference in the business model with handling the additional, the short type of stays. What kind of different infrastructure do you have in place with your management? Do you accept cash for those types of shorter stays, or is it all credit and checks, or do you not accept checks? Just give me an idea of what that looks like.
Because the hardest thing with such a transient population from a management end or ownership end is how easy it is for your managers to steal. Okay.
Yep.
It's super simple. I mean, it's so easy. So the key is, what we've done is just work hard to find the right managers that are ethical and moral. and the people that wouldn't steal. Secondly, give them the quality of life that they don't have a desire to steal, right? So we pay them a fair wage, probably better than they could get somewhere else doing the same job or a similar job, right? And we try and give them a good lifestyle. So it isn't. So we actually have 2 managers in the RV park, one that handles nights and weekends, and one that handles during the day. Okay, and by splitting it up like that, they always have a time off. Okay, because an RV is a 7x24 thing. It really is. I think if as we approach 50% of overnight stay, we'll have to have more help. You know, but right now it works. And yeah, you know, the thing is to make it simple for people to check in and check out. And so we don't have tons of paperwork or any of that. It's like most every RV park. You come in and you say, "Hey, I want to stay for the night. Here's the money." We take checks. We take credit cards. We love credit cards because they never bounce. In the mobile home parks, we never get checks that bounce because people know we know where they live.
Yeah, you find them, right?
Yeah, in the RV park, once in a while it happens. So I don't like checks, but we do take checks and cash. We discourage cash, but we're very fortunate that we redeveloped a portion of the RV park. We went from 93 units down to 33 units and sold that portion to a local gas station company. And they put in this big, beautiful new gas station, which has money orders. So if we get cash, we usually ask them to go there and get money orders, or we take the cash, walk down there, and change it to a money order right away.
Oh, that's beautiful. I was going to say, is it a necessary evil to even have to take not cash per se, but checks? I mean, very rarely do I see people writing checks anymore. I mean, every once in a while I'll be behind like some old lady at the grocery store, and she's there writing a check. But I think it's few and far between. Or am I incorrect with that statement? Because the typical demographic that you have that probably are staying in RV parks that are transient, that are traveling with their pool behind or their Class A, they're probably the 65 plus range that might be still used to writing checks. I mean, are checks still very relevant with that demographic in an RV park?
I would say we're probably 60% is checks.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you know, most RVers just don't bounce a check. The RVers that bounce the check are the one that's 30 years old with a broken window in it. And they're coming in they're going to pay a week, right? Or for 2 nights. And you're like, man, do we even let them in? And these days we just don't. At the beginning we did because we just needed any money we could get, right? And now it's like, no, we just don't have room for you. You know, you don't meet our criteria for the park. And so I don't think we get a bounce check every 2 years.
Okay, well, that's not bad. So the criteria for the park, will you just turn it away based on like the age of the trailer, the condition of it, something of that nature? So anything older than 20 years old has to have manager approval to come into the park. Okay, good.
Also, because our RV park does not have restrooms, because, dude, I didn't want to clean toilets. And so we don't have a public restroom. And because of that, all RVs have to have full hookups, right? So you don't get the little pop-up. You don't get the person who's got a tent. You don't get the people that are traveling on the very cheapest means of travel. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And that eliminates some of the issues too, I think. But I could be wrong because we've never experienced it because we just, from day one, said we're not having a public restroom. That's the way it's going to be. Okay.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah. I like that. And that park that you have in Wichita, mm-hmm. What is the season for the transient crowd? Is it just 6 months out of the year? Is it longer than that?
So it's interesting. What we get is people passing through from Texas going up north in the spring and in the fall. Okay? And then during the summer, we have vacationers, we have contractors, and we have people that are just got to go see their family, right? We slow way down, probably Thanksgiving through end of February. We're real slow, okay? And we're not that slow like some of the parks that are purely transient. But we'll get 15% vacancy then, maybe 20% vacancy at that point.
That's not bad. Okay.
Some of the other parks that are that lean more that direction and don't have as many long-term people, they'll approach 50% or more vacancy, 60% vacancy, which is why we don't lean 100% that way. I like cash flow. But the beauty of an RV park versus a mobile home park is if you want to increase your occupancy, it doesn't mean you have to bring in mobile homes and have this huge capital investment, right? What it does mean, though, is you have to take some time and increase your marketing and the look of the park and all of that, right? It's a little slower to increase, but it takes a lot less capital. Infinitely less capital. Yep.
Okay, good deal. Well, I want to ask you somewhat of a more personal question now, if you wouldn't mind, Tim. I know that you had mentioned that on one of those parks, I think it was a 277 space park, that you decided to sell it after 18 months of being in that turnaround. It was primarily due to a bad partnership. And the question I would like to ask, and it doesn't necessarily pertain to that particular park, but is there, we all go through challenges in our business, especially when we're getting started and we're learning. We're always making mistakes. If you're not making mistakes, you're really not growing. But has there ever been a point in your business where you've either made a big mistake or had a big loss that you've learned from, that you've had an actual takeaway from? And if so, what was it?
I listened to your podcast, and I know this question is coming, and I forgot to really write something down and plan for it.
Well, that's good. I like to be free flowing. So,
yeah, that's who I am.
Yeah.
I guess I have a couple really big mistakes I've made. One is thinking I have to do it all, because I'm an old farm boy, and I believe I got to do it all, and I got to be right in the middle of everything. When we moved from Wichita to New Mexico here in the last year, I've learned that A, I can manage it from afar, and B, not only did our income not really go down, but my personal stress level went down amazingly. My doctor loves me now because my blood pressure's in check, everything's in check, where before it was always high and everything else, So that was a big one, a big mistake I've always made, is thinking I have to be directly involved with everything that's going on, rather than let the reins loose and let others step up and do the right thing.
Yeah, no, I think that's you make a good point there, because I sometimes I have the conversation with with regards to mobile home parks. A lot of the parks we own, actually all the parks we own, are pretty far away from where I currently live, and I tell some people, in a perfect world, I would own all the communities within an hour radius of where I live here in Florida, but we don't buy in Florida a lot now because the prices are just too darn high. We can't get the returns that we want, so we really don't even spend time prospecting here. But when you really think a little bit deeper into that thought process, I don't know how accurate that statement is, because in all honesty, being that all of our communities are far away, they're mostly a plane ride away. I think the closest community we have outside of Florida is 8 hours. So it's in Atlanta, which is not a short car drive. And so it doesn't allow us the opportunity to jump in the car and say, I got to go to the park and check out what's going on. Like, you think of creative ways to do it. You rely on your management that's on hand. You put the systems and processes in place in order for your management to effectively manage and run the day-to-day operations without you having to be there. So I think there is a benefit of being far away from your properties. And I know a lot of people, they find that pill hard to swallow, especially if they're just getting into the business and they're saying, well, where I live, there's no good opportunities. Like I speak with a lot of people that live in California, and they're like, well, the only way that I'm going to get into this business, whether it's mobile home parks, apartments, shopping centers, whatever it is, if they want any kind of return on their money more than like 3%, they've got to go buy somewhere else in another state. And it's really challenging for them to wrap their mind around that. How the heck am I going to own this property 1,000 miles, 1,500 miles, or 2,000 miles away? And it's really not that difficult. If you're an organized individual and you can put the systems and processes in place or hire a management company that already has them in place, then it's actually much less stressful owning a property at a distance than is owning one close by. At least that's my opinion.
And, you hit the nail right on the head. It forces you to have better systems, and better systems make the business run smoother and more efficiently, and it means your managers can handle it rather than you having to step in and take care of something. Your systems have precluded that, right? And because of it, everything runs smoother and more profitable because you're out there looking for the next deal and working on the next deal.
I mean, there has never been a time ever when I've had to make an emergency flight or trip, or any of our partners have, to any of our properties. And so it's funny because a lot of people ask me where I buy, and I kind of have some preliminary kind of restrictions on how far we'll go. And I say I got to be able to fly there within 2.5 hours, direct flight from Tampa, Florida, right? So there has to be a direct flight to a major airport. It's got to be able to get there in 2.5 hours, and then drive no more than maybe an hour from the airport. Like in my mind, like that just means it's less than a day of travel. If I needed to, I could potentially go up there in one day and come back in one day. But I've never had to do that, But I really don't like traveling across time zones. I mean, we'll go to Central Time, but we really won't go to anything past that, only because that's when you really start losing hours when you have to travel across 2 and 3 different time zones. I don't think I would ever consider anything out on the West Coast because it's just literally you waste 2 days of traveling. One day each way. It's really hard to recoup from that, and it's just there's plenty of deals where we live. There's plenty of deals within a shorter distance, but it's. If I have any advice for anyone that's out there, and I'm sure you'll probably agree with me on this, is that don't limit yourself to where you live. If you're looking to get into this business, again, when I say this business, I mean commercial real estate in general. Whether it be mobile home parks, shopping centers, apartment buildings, anything bigger than just a single family home. Because I think it is challenging to actually own single family rentals from afar. Now you might get lucky, you might get good management in place, and I'm assuming you probably somewhat share some of your management responsibilities. You may be the manager in one of the parks, helps you oversee your rental properties, your single family homes, or do you actually have an outside company that manages those for you?
We've done all of the above.
Okay.
And my personal take on it is single family from afar is just as easy as anything else. You just got to make sure. Oh man, yeah. Well, it's always easier, right? When we had just the first rental houses and one of them was vacant, it was like, oh my word, we got to get that thing turned around and filled right away. Because it was a larger percentage of our total income coming in.
Sure.
As we started adding the parks.
Well, it's 100%. It's 100% of the income of that one property coming in, and it makes it very important to get it turned around ASAP.
But for me, I don't look at it as that. All my single-family homes is one business structure. So that business has X number of doors, okay? So if one of those doors isn't rented, it's just a percentage of it, right? It isn't about all that one whole thing. Once you get to over 10, you can start to have that feeling. As you approach 20, it's even easier. I've got friends that have 40 and 50 single-family homes, and they're the same way I feel as in our mobile home park, right? If you lose a tenant, so what? Next month, you'll fill that space, right? Same with the RV park. Once you have enough density, then you don't worry quite as much, personally. But again, you just don't get the bang for the buck as you do with higher density property. Mobile home parks, RV parks, I haven't dug into apartments, but a friend of mine in New Mexico is big into it, and I'm probably going to get into that space too. But the more people you have in one area paying, the better ROI you get per door.
Yep. Good point.
Yep, per space.
Well, Tim, this has been an absolute pleasure, and we're kind of rounding things out now. But before we say goodbye to one another, I'd like to enter what I like to call the Golden Nugget segment of the show. And you obviously listened to the show, so you knew this was coming. But if you could, before we say goodbye to one another, if you could leave just one last final golden nugget of advice or wisdom that may inspire and motivate our listeners as they progress in their real estate investing career, what would that one last golden nugget be?
It's actually a two-part thing, and part A is do something. Get off your butt and go do something. Analysis paralysis is not how you're going to succeed in real estate. You have to be active. You have to go do something. And the second part of it, and it goes together, is if a door seems to be closed, go do something. Figure out how to open the door. It isn't, well, I can't do that. It's like, how can I do that?
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's great advice.
And if you take those two, you can do anything.
Mm-hmm. I love it. Yeah. Short and sweet, but it's so relevant. Well, Tim, this has been an absolute pleasure. I'm glad I had the opportunity to meet you. I didn't know too much about you. I knew that you were in this particular line of work, but I didn't know too much about your background and your business. And so I'm really glad I had the pleasure of speaking with you. And I appreciate you taking the time to share all your information and your wisdom with our listeners. I mean, you've been doing this for a number of years now. You've been quite successful at it. And, I wish you the best in all your future endeavors, and I look forward to keeping in touch with you. So for those that want to learn more about Tim and his company, they can actually go visit his management company website, which is greentreemanagement.com. Again, that's greentreemanagement.com. And Tim, that's all we have for today. Thank you again, and you have a wonderful week, my friend.
Thanks, Kevin. You too, sir.
Congratulations! Now you've got more of the best tricks of the trade in building massive amounts of passive income from real estate. For more amazing resources, visit realestateinvestingforcashflow.com, and we'll see you next Monday morning.